So here in level 4, we're starting to consider, well, what do we do? What do we do if, to a large extent, people are governed by what is happening in their lower brain, their midbrain, is producing three coping strategies, which we're calling red, blue, green, following Karen Horney's dominant, detached, dependent. These are in conflict, and when they're in combination, they're quite complex. What they all do is they prevent logic because we're following our emotional, our political agenda. What can we actually do? So here are some thoughts about how we can get started in retrieving the situation. So we've had a look at the dominant, the detached, and dependent subpart of the brain. And of course, what we want to be able to do is to begin to get us into a position and into a state where we can manage the process of the difficult conversation. And it begins with using the logic to watch what is happening, to observe what is happening in me and what is happening in the other person, to actually begin to observe in a detached way, what are the emotions this person's going through? What is the cycle they're going through? And it's often a combination of those three colors. And what am I going through here? And I actually need to detach from those, disconnect from those in order to move to logic and move them to logic. We are very, very good at doing this as humans. The only way to overcome emotional in a highly stressful situation in a difficult conversation is this. It's by invoking a process, because a process is, of course, logical. A process is a sequence of events which doesn't change according to situations, but is an overall series of a journey, steps of a journey we go through to get something done. Let me give you a quick example of this, which I think is a very, very good example of the ability of us humans to overcome emotion through process. You're probably aware of this story of Captain Sully. You may have seen the movie with Tom Hanks. And Sully landed an aeroplane in the Hudson River and saved everybody's life through an amazing series of decisions based on process. Now, he records, of course, when all the engines went out through a bird strike, he was absolutely terrified, like everybody else was who knew about it, and like anybody would be. What he did is he went back to process, which is a checklist in the aircraft, of course, but also his knowledge about, given what the checklist is saying, what is my decision? And his decision was to ditch in the river, which had never been done before. But he followed the process the engineers had prescribed for the angle of attack, the angle the plane would come in at, in order to land safely and not break up in the process and not nosedive into the water. And an amazing job. How did he do that? How, in this instance, was emotion overcome? And it was overcome through having a process to go through in the actual emergency itself. And as you can see by that quote from Sullenberger, it is incredible with practice of a process what we can get used to. Our way of dealing with difficult conversations is to have a process. And the more we do it, the more natural it becomes, the calmer we become, and the more we move others into the logic part of their brain. So we'll get into what is the process, but that's the answer. Detach from the emotion, go to process.